Hello, this is Alec Kerr, the film critic for the Conway Daily Sun, and I just finished watching the final episode of The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien. Now, before I actually get into talking about the final show, I just want to talk about this whole debacle that happened with The Tonight Show. And I'm definitely on Conan O'Brien's side here. I think the way NBC and Jay Leno has handled this whole situation has just been really in poor form. I don't understand it. I understand, everything that happened, but I don't understand why it happened. This whole thing with giving Jay Leno a show out at 10 because he decided not to really retire and NBC didn't want to have him at a competing network. It was a bold experiment, and, they thought it was going to, raise revenue and that it was going to help because, obviously doing a nightly late night show, in prime time is cheaper than producing hour-long dramas, and that NBC thought they were going to make all this money, but the experiment didn't work. So to me, the obvious solution is to just let Jay Leno go. It was a nice try, move on. And so this whole idea of like, well, we'll give Jay back his old job and fire Conan. And now I realize that Conan was offered the opportunity to keep his job just on at starting at 12:05, and I'm glad he didn't take that because he's right. It would have ruined a legacy. Anyways, it wouldn't be the Tonight Show anymore. It would be the next morning show, or the next day's show, or the first hour of the Today Show. I mean, so I'm glad that Conan stuck to his guns and thought of not just himself but the legacy of one of the great television institutions. And so I'm glad that Conan did that. I just feel that NBC obviously made this offer to Jay Leno, and I think Jay Leno should have been the bigger person, the better person, and said, thank you for the offer, but I'm not going to take this away from Conan. I mean, he only had 7 months with the show. That's just to take that away from him. You had the show for 17 years, Jay. Can you give it to, Conan just a little bit longer? But hey, maybe the NBC executives just wouldn't have let that happen at all. Maybe they were just so frustrated with the whole thing, and they just had their mind set on getting rid of Conan. But, I don't understand their loyalty to Jay Leno because they've had a working relationship with Conan O'Brien just as long, maybe even a little bit longer. I believe he said that he's been working with NBC for 20 years if you count his years as a writer for Saturday Night Live before he started doing late night with Conan O'Brien. And so I don't understand why their loyalty goes with Jay Leno. Maybe because he's safe and Conan O'Brien's a little bit edgier and a little bit more, I'm not going to say risque, but he's spontaneous and you don't know what you're going to get with him necessarily. So that's my little rant on that. I'm sad to see Conan go. I'm not going to be watching Jay Leno's Tonight Show. I'm not going to be one of those people that just boycotts NBC now, but I'm definitely going to boycott that program. I'm not going to watch Jay's program. I really kind of just want to see this all blow up in NBC's face because I don't think what they did was right. As for the final show, I think that Conan O'Brien went out with a lot of grace and dignity. He did take a few swipes at NBC, but I do think they were deserve it. Saying at the beginning of the show that we have an hour to take everything everything out of this studio, and but most of the gags really were kind of more at the expense of him having to leave and not at NBC, although there was a really great gag of what they should, a list of the things that should be done with the studio, and one of the most poignant was that it should be left cold and empty as a metaphor for NBC programming, and that seemed like a real poignant zinger. I liked that. But at the end of the show, he gave, he repressed his tears, but it was borderline tear-filled, kind of just thing, saying that, he enjoyed his time at NBC and that he has, he's not going to be so petty to, disparage all that, and that he's been a very blessed person and that he realizes all that, and that just to have the Tonight Show at all was a big deal, and that it's the high point for any comic. So, I just have a lot of respect for Conan O'Brien, for the way he's handled this, And he had, the actual show, aside from all this drama, was it was a solid show. Tom Hanks was there. Steve Carell came and did a very funny bit where he did the exit interview with Conan. And at the end, they had a big blowout bash with Will Ferrell singing "Freebird" with Conan O'Brien playing guitar. Beck was there. It went out on a high note, and that's what Conan O'Brien wanted. He didn't want this to go out on this really depressing end note. I mean, he went out jamming on a guitar and smiling, and so more power to Conan. I'm definitely on Team Coco. If he winds up at Fox, I'm definitely watch his program, and I wish him all the luck. And this is Alec, and keep watching.